and give a little introduction about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Morgan. I have been sewing as long as I can remember, basically, but sewing for the dagger hair community since 2009. Um, Most of which I've been doing for myself and for family and friends and unit mates. And then 3 years ago, I had a son, and basically, my husband said, if you can make money, you can stay home. And so I turned what was a hobby into a full-time business. I absolutely love sewing. I love teaching people how to sew. It's a big passion of mine and something that I think it's something everyone should know how to do. We live in a world where even with just COVID-19, it was obvious that sewing was a huge thing because we needed masks hardcore. And so a lot of people who didn't know how to sew learned how to sew. And so with that being said, it's a good time for anyone who has a machine, who has been looking at it covered in dust and is like, I want to learn how to do that. For anyone in the medieval world, garb can be expensive to purchase. I do sell garb. I try to sell it as economically as I can, but again, it's still cheaper if you make it yourself, and that's how it will always be, because you have to pay that labor of time. And so there's definitely value in learning how to sew for the mundane world, as in the masks and other things you can make around your home, like curtains, pillowcases, blankets, bowl koozies, anything you could want to make for your own home. Having that value of sewing is tremendous. And then additionally, in the mundane world, you can learn how to make garb, you can make patches, you can make belts. I mean, you can make so much stuff. Sword covers, nice cover, rat. And all those different things that people spend money on, you can make for yourself at a much less cost. And then have that pride of saying, yeah, I made that. There's definitely a pride to being able to make your own stuff and being able to say, yes, I did make that myself. So for sewing 101, the first half an hour-ish is going to be basically what do you need to sew. I feel like a lot of classes miss that step. They just go straight into the machine. And yes, the machine is important, but you also need the tools to assist you. Otherwise, you're going to be running around your house looking for anything and everything. So the first thing we're going to start with is a good pair of scissors. There are different types of scissors out there. There are small scissors, medium-sized scissors, large scissors, fancy looking weird scissors. And whenever you go to a scissors department in any store, it can be overwhelming to see them all and go, what ones do I actually need? So most people, I would recommend going with a pair of just plain heavy duty scissors. These are all the Fiskars brand. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. I could totally be wrong. They're all made in Finland. Personally, it is my favorite brand of scissors. No, they're not paying me to say that or anything. They're just good quality scissors for a decent price. You can get different ones. I know there's German-made ones that are extremely fancy. They're also extremely expensive. You can also go to Walmart and get really cheap ones, and you're going to have cheap quality scissors as well. So if you want something sharp that's a good quality, highly recommend the orange-handled scissors from Fiskars. The longer and thicker the blades are, the more heavy-duty the fabric will be. So for example, these scissors right here would be ideal for cutting duck cloth, canvas, denim, multiple layers of cotton, anything like that. These are a little bit of a smaller pair. They're a lightweight to medium weight pair of scissors, ideal for silk, regular cottons, polyesters, and all your common fabrics. If you have to do a lot of cutting in a small amount of time, these do also offer a cushioning aspect to them, which is great so your hands don't get as fatigued quickly. Little scissors like this. So you may see any kind of scissors. These ones are actually spring action. They don't need to be, but they have a locking mechanism. Ideal for if you're around children, you can lock them and then they're less of a hazard. Granted, they still have the sharp tip, so they could still be dangerous, but with that locking, they're less likely to cut themselves. These are ideal for cutting threads, for cleaning up your fabric after you've sewn it, those kind of smaller detail-oriented things. And then these guys, I actually just picked these up. They're spring-loaded as well. The spring helps you to not have the fatigue as much on your hand. These are for getting down really close to the fabric, so like doing patches, embroidery work, those kind of things. There's also another set that are similar to these. It has two equal parts that pinch down. They can be used for embroidery as well. So that kind of gives you an idea of different types of scissors. Does anyone have any questions regarding scissors before I go to the next thing?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. So the next thing is going to be threads. So like everything in this, there's so many different threads out there that it, again, can be overwhelming that you're like, what do I actually use? Most of you are probably familiar with this one. It's your thin, really cheap bobbin of thread. This will work for most basic projects. So if you're doing curtains in your home or anything that's not going to be heavy duty or strained, this is ideal. Usually it's about $2 for a roll of it. This specific one is a Coats and Clerks. They are a decent brand of embroidery thread. I believe this is 100% polyester. No, this one's cotton. I'm sorry, it's 100% cotton. If you're making masks, this one is ideal for making masks. If you need something heavier duty, you can use even denim thread or embroidery thread. Personally, I use embroidery thread because I enjoy it. I like it. Sulky has been my go-to brand for embroidery thread. SULKY. This is a little bit more expensive. You're going to pay about $13 for a roll of this, but you get a lot of thread. It's heavy duty, ideal for garb. So especially in those armpit areas and the crotch areas, things like that that are going to rip out easily, heavy duty thread will hold it together. Other brands that you may see, this one is called Cool. This actually came from Wish. I decided to purchase some just to see because they are always offering like free or discounted and it's super cheap. It is cheap. Will it work for some projects? Absolutely. Is it going to work for your, I need this to hold together for a long period of time or over many years? No. They do come in the bright, vibrant colors, as you can see. Will it get the job done? Absolutely, but it's not going to hold for long term. Weapon covers. So weapon covers, I definitely recommend going with embroidery thread, which is like the sulky. It is called 40 weight. So the weight of the thread tells you how many pounds of pressure you can put on it before it breaks. And since this is 40 weight, that's 40 pounds. Coats and Clerks also makes an embroidery thread. It is good thread. It is not great thread. As far as like good, better, best, this stuff is going to be your good. This is going to be your better. This is going to be your best. Coats and Clerks is a little bit cheaper. You're going to pay about $8 for a roll of it. Again, comes in lots of vibrant colors. It does have a decent amount on it. It is 100% polyester, so don't put it in the microwave. It'll hold together weapons cover, sure, absolutely. As far as like the crotch though on a pair of pants or the armpits, not so much. The other one that I have is Ribbenson. So these guys are a specialty type of thread. You can get them in any Viking store. So if you go to Joann's, you'll notice there's a small section of the store called Viking. It is technically separate from Joann Fabrics. In that area is where you'll find these guys, this thread. It is a really good quality thread. It is a polyester blend thread, or no, I'm sorry, a rayon polyester blend thread. Really good for embroidery. It's good for sewing, but I wouldn't use it for all my projects just because the price of it. And I think that's all the threads I had. As far as bobbin thread, you want to use even 100% cotton, or you want to match whatever thread you're doing on top. So when you have your bobbin thread, if it's the same weight, it makes it easy to use. If it's a lesser weight, it's okay. You don't want the bobbin thread to ever be a heavier weight than the top thread though. That's a mistake that I see some people will often make. So any questions on thread? What is bobbin thread? So we'll go into bobbins now. So when you're looking at your machine, and I'm gonna switch cameras real quick. You might have to actually zoom into the other one. Oh, hold on a second. Let me flip this around. How do I do that? Oh, there we go. Hey. Sorry, technical difficulties. Maybe. Okay, so if you're looking at, this is my sewing machine. Your bobbin is going to be the part that's down here. So this is called a drop-in bobbin. There are two different types of bobbins whenever you're looking at sewing machines. There is a drop-in bobbin, and then there is, let's hold it up. And then there is an older type. I forget what the name of it is, honestly. This is the kind you'll find in most embroidery or in most sewing machines today, though. And I'll show you how to thread that. So whenever you put it in, you simply, looking at it, there should be an arrow. somewhere on your machine. If you look right here, it's actually right there. It tells you which way the string needs to go. So you put it in there, hook it around. There'll be a click, and then there you go. That's all you have to do. It's a simple process to put that in there. Can't find the link to the sewing class. Oh, hold on 1 second, guys. This is odd. Sorry about that. Yeah. What happened? Okay, we're back. What is bobbin thread? Sometimes whenever you're at the stores where it talks about like the different types of thread will be up on the shelf, there'll actually be one labeled bobbin thread. You can use that. Let's see if I have one sitting here. I don't think I do. Oh. Another thing regarding bobbin thread is you want some kind of organizers. So there are different types of towers and things you can get. This is my personal one. So if you look at this one, oh, it doesn't actually say it on it. Oh, yes, it does. So if you look at the bottom, see how it says bobbin thread? Make it clear. It'll actually tell you that this is a good bobbin thread. And it's just, again, the weight of it and how it's made. And as far as storing bobbins, or not bobbins, but threads in general, we're gonna stop that video. Another unique thing about a lot of bobbins is there'll be a piece on the end that'll pop out like that, which gives you a little bit more space. So when you're done using it, instead of having this weird little dangly toy hanging down, you can tuck it in, snap it closed, and then you don't have anything hanging. Great if you have children, cats, or anything like that, just to help keep you more organized. They also, if you do have bobbins that do not have that, they make these cute little bobbin smushy things. And what this does, again, holds the string in place so you don't have to worry about it running all over the place and wasting extra thread, because thread is expensive. Well, for good quality thread. Any other questions regarding threads or bobbins? Alrighty, so we'll move on to needles. Needles, there are tons of different needles for a sewing machine. The most common one you're going to use is called a universal needle. They often will come in packs that look like this, and it'll just say universal on it. Typically, the higher the number, the thicker it'll sew through. So, for example, a 70 is for your regular cottons. 80 is the most common one you'll use. 90 and 110 are the ones you'll use for denim or for canvas. They do also make leather needles as well. Leather needles have a dull tip and they're a little bit fatter on the end. Some sewing machines can sew through lightweight leather and suede. Mine is one of them. Not all machines can do that. So what you want to look for if you're looking for that aspect in a sewing machine is that it'll say it is an industrial machine versus just being an everyday sewing machine. You do pay a little more for those features, and the biggest difference is the internals of the machine. So the internals of my machine are all 100% metal. In some cases, they do make machines with plastic parts or plastic gears because they don't need to be able to go through as much stuff. There are also what is called twin needles. So if you look at the cuff of your sleeve, and I'm sure everybody's got a shirt on, well, hopefully, maybe not, I don't know, this is a Zoom meeting. The cuff of your sleeve will actually have 2 rows of stitches. If you don't have sleeves on, check your pants, things like that. You'll see 2 perfectly even rows of stitching, and you're like, how do they do that? How many ounces of leather? Guess not. No, definitely not armor grade. Mine will do 3 to 4 ounces. I made this bag with my sewing machine. When you're buying a sewing machine, as far as regular sewing, the people behind the desk will not be able to tell you how much it'll sew. I can tell you that from experience. What you'll want to do is you'll actually need to go to the manufacturer's website ahead of time and just ask them. Or yeah, you can message someone, you can ask them, you can just look at the specs of the machine. You just want the more power and to make sure that there's metal in the parts. So going back to needles, this is a twin needle. This is what makes that double stitch. Not all sewing machines can use this needle. Again, that's something you want to look at your manufacturer's guide when you purchase the sewing machine. And again, there are different sizes for that. You can go up to, I think, 4 millimeters apart. My machine won't go that wide, but a lot of machines can if they do it. Other needles that you'll see. So when I went to Joann Fabrics, one of the things I found was this cute little needle guide. It is amazing. It gives you like a little bit of information about every single type of needle. So I use it as a reference guide. Talks about universal, a top stitch needle, which is the one where you will see like the pretty stitching, like on your pants. Embroidery needles, which we're not going to get into tonight. Denim needles, if you're doing heavy canvas, if you're doing denim or microfiber, that's what you're going to use those for. Those are the bigger numbers, so like 130 over 75. There are quilting needles, there are stretch needles. Most of those needles, though, you will not be using in your everyday sewing. Most of them you will use just a standard 80 or 90 needle. The lengths of most needles are the same, so you can get pretty much any brand for any sewing machine, unless you have a specialty machine. Again, refer to your user guide for that information. And I know the user guide may be annoying at first, but trust me, if you have one of those for your machine, definitely take a look at it. You'll learn so much more about your machine than you ever thought. Anyone have any other questions about needles? All right, so I'm going to show you real quick how to put a needle in. Which you can move this camera to, it's easier. So over here on the right side of my machine, there is a little screw. Now, sometimes you will need to use a screwdriver, and you basically just untwist it, pull the needle out, and then take your new needle, put it in, and screw it back in until it's tight. You don't want to over tighten. I don't know if you guys can see this, but there actually are threads sticking out. That's okay. You just want it to be tight enough this needle doesn't wiggle. Oh, number of stitches. That's the other thing that's important. So when you're sewing, people are like, when do I need a new needle? My sewing machine doesn't tell me the number of stitches it has. So the ideal industry agrees that it's every 40,000 stitches. Now, again, sewing machines typically don't tell you how many stitches you've done. So how you can figure this out is basically every large project that you do is going to be a separate needle. If you're making a full outfit, a tunic and a pair of pants, one needle should be sufficient for that. If you're making 50 masks, one needle should be sufficient for that. Basically, if you don't know, one way to tell that you need a new needle is that your thread will snap. It could be even crappy thread, but if you're using good quality thread, it most likely means your needle needs to be replaced. The other thing you can look at is if you're having issues with the bobbin, it's not threading correctly, you've already restrung your machine multiple times, and you're like, okay, this is still not working, and most likely your needle needs to be replaced. So you can buy them, like I said, in those little packs, or if you do a ton of sewing, the other way you can buy them is in these large packs. So there's actually 100 needles in this little pack. Something like this costs, well, this one was $53. Of course, I don't pay full price for anything. Always buy stuff on sale with a coupon. That way you can save yourself money. That little screwdriver I was talking about, this is often what it'll look like, some resemblance of this guy. You don't want to lose him. He will actually hide in your machine somewhere. Most machines have a little cubby place. And then for needle safety, when one does break, you don't want to just throw it in the trash. The chance of stabbing someone is bad. So what I recommend is getting a container. I have this cute little mason jar. In the bottom, you can see like a half year's worth of needles in there. Those are all dead needles is what I call them. They're ones that I won't use again because they've either broke or they're just dull, because I do keep track of needle count on my machines. Any other questions regarding needles? Nope. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing. Pins. Those are kind of like needles. So there are different types of pins. You will find little short ones and then longer ones. Most of the time, I won't lie to you, I use the larger ones. They're easier to see, they're easier to find, and they stab me less. It is personal preference as to which one you use. Large needles are better for thicker fabric. If you're using silk or something, then a fine, skinny one would be more common. Pins, you can find them anywhere. They're at Walmart, they're at any craft store. I think they're sold usually in lots of 100. I don't know about brands regarding them. Any pin brand will work. The one thing I will say though is when you put them in, you want to make sure that they go adjacent to, like a plus sign, adjacent to your fabric. You don't want it to be in line because you can actually sew over these. Now, I personally don't. I always pull it out right before I get to that place. But what this will do is it'll hold your fabric in place so that as you're sewing, you don't have to worry about anything moving or wiggling, things like that, which is really annoying. Pinning something does take extra time. You also have to be careful. Some materials will show the pinholes. So if you're using a very thin or lightweight fabric, you may want to just skip the pins. But for most common projects, you can use pins and not have any problems. For all cottons, linen is actually a cotton, duck cloth, canvas, denim, things like that. You can use pins with no problem. For example, with the leather bags, though, I don't use pins because if I put a hole in this, you're gonna see it. So these were not pinned. These are all free-handed, just held together. Any questions on pins? They're pretty basic. All right. Iron. It's one of those things that people don't do, and you should do it. So when you get fabric, you want to wash it, dry it, and then iron it. When you iron it, you flatten it out, you make it all the same length, and then when you're cutting it out for your patterns, it just makes it so much cleaner. And then you have clean lines that are straight, easy to follow. And you don't have to worry about the little wrinkly stuff everywhere. Oh, there's my husband in the background. As far as heat of an iron goes, almost every iron will have settings on them that'll say, like, this is for cotton, this is for linen. I did not bring my iron over here because it's plugged in because I was just using it. If you are not sure what temperature to use, go with a cooler setting and try it. And if that doesn't work, then warm it up a little bit, but be patient. You might have to go over fabric multiple times. Hi, buddy. You want to come up here? Nope. Oh, look, my husband brought it over. Okay. So, see how my iron has settings. So right now it's on the cotton setting because that's what I use the most. Up here, which is hotter, is going to be linen. Down here, which is cooler, is going to be wool. And then there's also silk as the coldest, and nylon has barely any heat whatsoever because nylon will melt. So that's why you want to start with a cooler temperature. If your fabric starts to melt, it will get shiny, it'll get a sheen on it, or it can even catch fire. So again, cooler is better. If you're not sure, start there, slowly warm it up. Linen, you can go as hard as you want. If it's a linen blend, which is what you will find at Joann Fabrics or Michael's or any craft store, start with a cotton setting and then go up if you're 100% sure it's linen. If you're buying linen from the linen store or the fabricstore.com, that is 100% linen, and therefore you can just go with the straight linen setting. As far as brands of irons, I don't have a preference. Because of my husband's job, I've tested multiple different types of irons for him. Basically, as long as it gets the temperature I need, that's good enough for me. So you can get a cheapy Walmart one, you can go buy an expensive one. That's all on you. You can use whatever one's in your closet. The other thing is your iron, you want to clean it regularly. So there should be a cleaning setting on it. You just fill it up with water, put it on the cleaning setting, and then douse the water into a sink. By doing that, you remove the fibers that are inside, again, preventing a fire hazard. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Lint roller. Y'all know what a lint roller is. Recommend using it. Use it before you sew your fabric. Use it after you're done sewing your fabric, especially if you have cats. That's all I'm going to say about that because lint rollers are pretty common sense. I did say make sure you wash before Make sure you do wash your fabric before you cut it, sew it, iron it, especially for clothing because fabric shrinks. If you want your fabric to shrink less, dry it or wash it in cold water. Yeah, wash in cold water, and then whenever you throw it in the dryer, put it on medium or low heat. Don't put it on a high heat. If you want to shrink like crazy the first time, then put it on a high heat, wash in hot water. And that way, the next time you wash it, you don't have to worry about, is this going to shrink anymore? When in doubt, when making your garb, after you've washed it and dried it, if you think it might shrink more, make your garb a little bit big, make your clothing a little bit big. We live in a medieval setting. It doesn't hurt to have it a little bit big. It does hurt if it's shrunk too much though, because then you have to go find a skinny friend to give it to. Trash can. I know it probably seems silly that I'm going to talk about this in this meeting, but let me tell you, this is a lifesaver. Dyeing before sewing. Yes. So if you are going to dye fabric, you definitely want to do it before you're sewing, and you want to wash it twice. That way you prevent it from streaking, from getting all over your skin, things like that. I personally don't dye any of my fabric. I'm not a fan of it. I've never gotten the colors that I want. I've tried a couple times. It just is miserable. But if it's something you want to do, you definitely want to wash it twice to make sure you're going to get all that other color out. And when you're buying dyes, there are different types of dyes. So you want to read to make sure that the dye matches the fabric that you're getting. So on a trash can. So this is a little coffee container that I put a plastic bag in for little strings and stuff. So most people, when they're sewing, this area in front of them will be covered in tiny little scraps from cutting pieces off because they don't know where to put them. And yeah, it would be convenient to have a big trash can next to me, but nobody does that. Nobody. So by having a small little trash can nearby, it can be any kind of trash can you make. It can be this, it can be a container like this. It doesn't matter, but have something you can throw those little scraps in. It'll save you so much cleanup in the end. I know it seems silly, but trust me, it saves you so much cleanup. Alrighty, I think that's a list of everything that you need to actually start your project. Yes, trash cans can absolutely save lives, and huge messes. Does anybody have any questions about the items that you need to get started? No? Okay. So now I'm going to show you. Does everyone here have a sewing machine of some form? And if so, what brand is it? Most likely it'll be a Singer, a Brother, or a Husqvarna. Although there are some off brands like Baby Lock, and there's a couple other brands. If you could list what kind of sewing machine you have, or if you don't have one, that would be helpful. Mainly hand stitch. Okay. Hand stitching definitely has a place. Brother. Okay. Brother's a good brand. I have 2 embroidery machines by them. I don't have any suggestions. A good starter one. Piece it by Brother. Don't have one. Okay. Personally, I am partial to Husqvarna. The machine I'm about to show you, I have had it since 2009. I've had it serviced once. You're technically supposed to have them serviced every single year. I didn't really know that though, so I recently started getting it serviced. I had it serviced last year, and I'm gonna actually start getting it serviced every year. But it is a fantastic machine. Older Singers are also really good machines. I've heard, not experienced, that newer Singers was not as good. So that's something you want to look into. As far as a Singer, if you do want to get one, like I said, the Husqvarna was my pride and joy though. I bought it because the name is a Husqvarna Viking, and I thought Viking sounded cool. But turns out this machine is pretty epic. Like I said, it'll do leather, it'll do denim, it does everything that I need it to do. It probably would not be good with silk though. So if you're doing silk, really lightweight fabrics, it probably would not be good there. So I'm going to turn my camera back on so that you guys can actually see my machine. Short video. Oh, and hydrate. That's another thing that a lot of people don't do. So whether it's having a coffee nearby, although that's not really hydrating, having a water bottle, having something that you can drink water. It sounds silly, but hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. It's so important. Because if you really get into sewing something, you will be sitting there for hours, and then you wake up, you stand up, and you're like, oh my goodness. So this is my machine. It is called the Emerald 116 or 116. It is the cheapest of this series. There are two more, a little bit more advanced machines that you can get as far as Husqvarna Viking goes. But I love this machine. Like I said, we actually own two of these machines now. Somebody gave us a second one. They were gonna take it to Goodwill, and we were like, no, 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 we'll buy it. And so she just gave it to me. So if you're going to get a machine, Goodwill is a place to find them sometimes. If you do buy one secondhand though, make sure you get it serviced immediately. That way you know if there's any issues. Almost all machines will have a guide as far as what kind of, what's it called? Feet to use and what kind of stitches to use and those kind of things. But this can be very confusing. If you do have one of these guys, you want to refer to your user manual as far as what each one of these mean. So the one big thing you'll see those are different feet names on them. Let's see if I can zoom in. Yeah, there we go. So there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and actually it goes to the whole alphabet. I have almost the entire alphabet's worth of feet, but I will tell you that the only ones I use are A, which is what's on this guy. So this is an A foot, and then B2, and H is the other one. So there's the other foot, it's an H. This one's actually a leather foot, so it's got a different bottom to it to help the leather stay in place. Oh, and then the R foot. I forgot about that guy. The R foot is a tacking foot. So if you're just going to tack something together, not one that you would typically use though. It's more for advanced sewing. When you get your sewing machine, it most likely will have an A, B, or C foot on it. That's going to be your main foot that you use. So on this plate right here, you'll see right here, there's like little numbers. So I can do them. These are actually measurements to tell you how far you're out. You can use these for guides for sewing. So there's 4/8, which is a 1/2 inch, 5/8, 6/8, and if you go all the way out to the end, I believe it's 2 inches. I could be wrong. And then these are also centimeters or millimeters. Sorry. Personally, when I do a lot of sewing, I use the 15. It's an easy number for me to see, but it allows me to know that I have enough edging there, so that whenever I'm sewing, I can make sure that it's not going to tear out. Let me see. So we'll use this mask as an example. So like when I'm lining it up, see how this actually in a little bit, to make sure that line is nice and even, I use those guides to kind of tell me how far away from the edge I'm going to be. And that's how you get pretty lines. Let's see if I can thread this one-handed. So to thread a sewing machine, most sewing machines will have some kind of piece on top, this one right here, that you will put your bobbin into, like that, and then you'll thread it. That is ideal for any bobbin that looks like this shape, that has the cone shape to it. It is not ideal for one of these, because what happens is your thread will get caught on the top part and it'll rip and break and it'll annoy the crap out of you. So if you're using a bobbin like this in your machine, whenever you purchase it, it'll have another piece like this, and there'll be a small little hole that you shove it into. And from there, you set it there and see how it flows freely, then you don't have any problems. And then you just want to follow the arrows on your machine. It'll actually tell you how to thread it. So following the arrow on top, you come down and it says to go back up. You're going to hook it into this metal piece, and you'll actually see and hear it hook in. And then you want to drop it down. On the bottom, there's some kind of metal piece. And then most sewing machines have an automatic threader nowadays. If you know how to use it, feel free to. I honestly don't use it because it annoys me personally. My older machine did not have one of those, so I never got used to using one. Sometimes you do have to use a little bit of spit to make sure the end of that actually goes into the hole. I know, it's great with COVID. And then pull it through. And then, of course, because of COVID, see, little trash can. If you do use a little bit of spit, just make sure you chop off the little piece on the end, especially if you're giving it away to someone else. That way, they're not exposed to your yucky germs. And then you want to pull it through at least until the end of your machine. Use that as a guide. To get the bobbin to come up, I already showed you how to put it in. So then you're going to take on the right side, there should be a wheel here. You're gonna turn it towards you. Always turn it towards you. And then see how it's dropped down in. And you're gonna hold this side. It's hard to do one-handed. Ah, that didn't work. All right, and it's supposed to pull it through. Again, I'm trying to do this one-handed. This is a two-handed process. I need like an extra arm here. So drop it down in. There we go. And if you saw, it actually scooped around inside of there and pulled it out. And once you pull it out, you again want to tuck it. You want it to be into this little space right here. I'm sorry if this is hard to see. And then the little guide, you put that back on. And it is ready to sew. And again, there's more measurements on the guide. Some guides have those additional measurements, some do not. It's a hit or miss. If your machine will, I believe brother machines for the most part do. So another really cool thing about most sewing machines is there is this little pocket here where you can hide extra needles, extra bobbins, extra seam ripper. This machine is unique where you can actually pull this whole piece off, and there's another hiding spot back here where you can put stuff in as well. Okay. So as far as stitches go, all machines are going to have a straight stitch. What am I strapped to? Oh, actually, yeah, I did my thread. Hold on, I'm going to switch color threads just so you guys can see the stitches. Yeah, we'll use this cheesy stuff. If you have any questions, though, feel free to put them up while I'm trying to figure out how this unthreads. Nope, this one has a second thread. And the longer you sew, the quicker you get it threading. At first, it can be very frustrating to get it into the needle hole. And you might think, oh, I need a bigger needle hole. You don't, you just have to practice. My husband uses a magnifying glass sometimes. Back stitching, yep. Back stitching is going to be something I go over as well. Yeah, so I'm going to actually show you how it works and everything. You won't do a lot of back stitching, but you will do a secure stitch at the beginning and end of almost every line. And so that's where you'll use the backwards button, as my son calls it. Wow, I did not want to go in the hole. So I have my piece of fabric here. So right now I have my machine on the back of your machine. There will be a lever. I don't know if you can see it right here. And this actually drops the foot. So if you pull it down, you drop the foot. You have to drop that, otherwise you'll have issues. You'll have all sorts of knotting and things like that. And sometimes that's just a simple problem. As a beginner sewer, it can be easy to forget about that piece. Over on this side, you have the tension. For most sewing, you will have it. Works pretty good. Just takes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people are really good at using the threader. James uses his all the time. My husband. I personally, just like I said, I've never gotten used to doing it, so that's on me. For most sewing, you're going to keep it on the 3, which is the highest tension. And that what that does is it pushes this foot down as hard as it'll go. If you're doing leather or something like that, you'll want it on a looser one, which see how there's more give. Oops, see how there's more give to the needle. That's ideal if you're doing thicker fabrics, if you're doing multiple layers. Like for example, when I'm doing the masks, at one point I'm sewing through 8 layers of fabric. And so for that moment, having this on 1 makes this a lot easier. But with this example, we're gonna have it on 3 where, as you can see, 0 movement at all, with the same amount of pressure. This little guy right here allows me to zigzag if I want to, or just have a straight stitch. We're gonna have it on straight right now. 1, and then The last dial here is for the millimeters, so we're going to have it on 1.5. That's what I do the majority of my sewing on. That's what you'll do the majority of your sewing on. It seems like it's a lot of stitches, but you want a lot of stitches to have a good secure hold. So when you start sewing, a lot of people will tell you to start off with the fabric, but that is not my recommendation. My recommendation is start in a tiny bit, drop your foot down, go forward a little bit, and then go backwards off of the fabric. And how I'm going backwards is every machine will have some kind of a backup button, and it'll actually look like a U-turn sign, and that's how you know that's your backup button. Sometimes it's up here on the machine, sometimes it's here. Again, you just want to look for that U-turn symbol. And then once you go forward, it'll secure it for you. When you're ready to be done with the stitch that you're doing, you just want to go backwards again and forwards again. You don't have to go super far, as you can see, just a tiny little bit. And what that does is does that little bit extra securing that you need. Now, say you're going to a corner, we're going to go forward again, secure it, come forward more. Now we want to do a corner. So what you want to do is you want to make sure your needle's all the way down. If it's up, again, you're going to use this little wheel. This is a manual wheel to move this needle down. Once it's in the fully down position, you'll lift up your foot piece by using this piece in the back. Turn your fabric. Now you need to be gentle with your machine. You don't want to rip on it because you'll end up bending the needle. Bent needle means broken needle, means you're not going to sew anymore with that needle. Once you get it to the angle you want, in this case a 90-degree angle, you want to drop it back down and then progress forward. By doing that, you'll secure it again. You will get a nice sharp corner. See, perfect little square corner. Some machines also have the option of using a button holder. I feel like that's a more advanced thing to do. I personally hate doing buttons, so I'm not going to show you guys how to do that. I hate it so much that I don't even have that piece with me right now. It's upstairs in my sewing room. So another good stitch to do is a zigzag. So to do that, I'm going to switch this to our number 2 and then move this wheel all the way to the wide end. And then you see that zigzags. Now, if you're wondering what you would use a zigzag for, if you're doing any kind of stretch material, if you want additional reinforcement after you've done your straight stitch, you can do the zigzag on the outside of your fold. So how that would look would be, so if this is the part right here that would be holding your stitch together, say for example on your pants, then you want to zigzag on the inner part of it, or on the outer part of it, I'm sorry. And that'll help hold your fabric together more. It is not necessary. It can also be used as a decorative stitch, as you can see. But again, just holds it together a little bit better. Don't use that as your primary stitch. So you always want to straight stitch first and use that as your primary stitch unless you're doing stretch fabric. Most sewing machines also have a cutting mechanism. They will usually have like a warning near it that says, warning, this area is sharp. What is a little blade? You just run your thread up through it like that, and then it cuts it off for you. So, to my knowledge, it doesn't ever need to be sharpened. I've never had to sharpen mine. Another common stitch you'll use. Nope, not that one. Oh, anytime you're switching the stitches, you want to make sure your needle is up, because if you notice, see how my needle's going around as I'm doing stuff with it. Nope. There we go. That's the stitch I want. So like I am right there, you want to always use a test piece of fabric, which is what this is. It's a piece of scrap that I just cut off something that I don't need anymore, to test, to make sure you're getting the right stitch for what you want to do before you go on to your finished product. Otherwise, you'll have a whole bunch of random stitches if you don't have them marked. But what this stitch does, see how it's going forwards and backwards? It's an extra securing stitch. So if you don't want to go back and forth doing the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch, you can do this one instead. This is fantastic for doing leather working. It's fantastic for doing canvas, for doing a crotch, an armpit, anything you're going to have extra stress on. It is definitely ideal for doing. Yes, it will use more thread totally worth it though. Sword covers and shields as well. Those are another high stress item. So having that double stitch would definitely make a difference in how long your shield cover will hold up. If you've done a good sewing stitch on something, your fabric of the project should tear out before the stitch does. Excuse me. If the stitch tears out first, then you've used the wrong type of stitch to do it. And I know it sucks to say it that way, but that just kind of gives you an idea. Like if you're looking at something 5 years from now that you've made and you're like, is it the fabric ripping or is it the stitches? If it's the stitches ripping, that means you need to take a look at what kind of stitch you used and use a different one that's more ideal for that kind of situation. If it's the fabric ripping, there's nothing you can do about it. Fabric will wear over time, and that's just a known thing. There's nothing you can really do to get around that. As you're working with your sewing machine, most sewing machines have some kind of weird plus and minus sign on the stitches as well, right here. Those are for your unique stitches, so you can play around, just turn it to different settings and go, wonder what this does. And using your piece of fabric that you have, you can just adjust your settings and go, oh, that's what that does. A lot of sewing machines come with a lot of pretty stitches, like that's considered a pretty stitch. In some cases, they do have a use. If you look at your manual, it'll actually tell you what kind of stitches to use for different projects. But for the most part, anything garb related is going to be either the 1-2 stitch, which is that one that goes back and forth, or your straight stitch, which is going to be what you're using when you're doing hand stitching, or any general sewing machine stitching. And again, backwards button. Oh, tension is the other thing that's important. So most sewing machines, when you get them, they will have a wheel right here. What that is that's going to be the tension of the bobbin. It typically will have a couple different ones. So see, there's 0 that doesn't have a block around it. I don't know how well you can see that. But then like 3, 4, and 5 on my machine have a square around them. That tells you that is the ideal tension. For my machine, 3.5 is ideal. And how you can tell that is if you have 2 different types of thread in with your sewing machine. So for example, you can use pink on the bottom, blue on the top, and use a black piece of fabric. If you can see the thread on the bottom or on the top coming through, then your tension is not right. So looking at my stitches here, when I did that zigzag stitch, the tension was not right for that stitch. So I would want to adjust that. But for the straight stitch, as you can see, you can only see really the black on the bottom and the white on the top. That means this tension was correct. Every stitch has their own ideal tension. Every machine is going to be different. Even 2 machines of the exact same manufacturer, exact same style, they're going to be a little bit different based off of when their service lasts, how often they're used, what kind of needle you're using. So you always want to pre-check that before doing any projects and make sure that that's correct. Let's see, other than that, does anybody have any questions? And I've kind of gone over a lot. Actually, kept wondering about, yes. And then additionally, when you're messing with the tension and things like that, if you are messing with the machine and you're finding that you can't get it to be even, you can always call me, you can message me, I will help you out, walk you through it. It doesn't bother me to do so unless I'm sleeping with my toddler, and I'll get back to you shortly. If it's something like some machines, if it's beyond, like say for example, you're running a piece of leather through the machine and you bent the needle out of whack and then all of a sudden your machine won't sew correctly, you probably messed up something internally and you just want to take it to be serviced. In my area, which is Richmond, Virginia, it costs about $100 to have a sewing machine serviced, and what that does is they clean out all the dust, they look over all the parts of the pieces, and they replace anything that needs to be replaced at the cost of you, of course. It's a really good, oh, I'm sorry, that's for an embroidery machine. For a sewing machine, it's about $75. My apologies. Forgot it's cheaper. $75 once a year is not that bad, in my opinion. If you're someone who is making money with your sewing machine, basically what I do is every sale, a small percentage gets put aside, and then at the end of the year, that money all goes towards servicing the machine. It's just a good way to take care of your machine. The better you take care of it, the longer it'll last. My mom had a Singer machine that lasted her 35 years before I kicked it and broke it. Yes, I actually kicked the machine because it upset me. Don't recommend doing that. But because she, if you live in our area, there's a place called Sewing something. I don't know. There's somewhere like 20 minutes from here that I've taken all my machines to that I really appreciate and I really like. In your area though, a good way to find out if a shop is ideal to you is go on Google and read the reviews. People will be straight up honest about if they had to have stuff replaced that they don't need to have replaced. You basically want to look for a 4.5 star or better place when you're looking at Google reviews, and depending on where you're located, will tell you what your options are. The other thing you can do is for your brand of sewing machine, you can go on their website and you can ask them, who are your certified dealers or who are your certified cleaners? The place that I go to is certified for doing Baby Lock and Brother. Technically, they're not certified for doing Viking, but I've let them do my Viking machines as well because they did such a great job with my Brother machines. And they did fantastic. They weren't certified through Viking because they didn't bother just getting the approval of them. And that'll tell you something as well, just the amount of reviews they get, if they've gone through the approval process to get the machines done through the manufacturers, things like that. If they care about their business, they will do that. You can also go to an independent person, like a small town place. The place that I use actually is technically a small town. They only have one location. But when you go in there, the shop is clean, everyone is professional. And that's another way to tell, like, maybe I should be here. If you go into a shop and it's all dusty or gross smelling or things like that, when you walk in, you'll know, like, just if you see a red flag, trust your instinct. I mean, most sewing machines cost between $300 and $10,000. And you don't want to just leave that machine to someone who is not going to take care of it. And if they can't take care of their shop, they can't take care of your machine. That's how I look at it. If you do take it in to be serviced somewhere, I highly recommend having your name on it somewhere. This machine, the sticker fell off. But on almost all of my machines, there'll be a sticker that says Densmore on it. And that way I know the machine that I'm giving them is the machine I'm getting back. Maybe that's my paranoia, but I've never had a problem because I put my name on stuff. I have heard of people having their machines switched out. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. As far as fabric goes, Joann Fabrics is my go-to. It's what's local. It's what works for me. Again, coupon. You can get a coupon for anything you purchase at Joann's. Best days to go shopping there are Sundays because the coupons are usually the biggest, and Wednesdays. I know it sounds funny, but Wednesdays is also a huge coupon day with less people in the store. Michael's is also up and coming as far as fabrics go. They do have a decent amount of threads and stuff like that as well. Not as good as Joann's, but they are up and coming. Some people like Hobby Lobby. I personally do not because of their moral ethics, but that's me. If you're comfortable going there, it's a good place to go. When looking at fabric, you want to check out to see like what kind of fabric it is. If you need a project that's 100% cotton because you're going to be putting it in the microwave with wool koozie, don't settle and get something that's half polyester and half cotton because it's cheaper. Trust me, you want to go with whatever your project says to go with that. Linen is the same way. If you go to Joann Fabrics, a lot of linens will be like, I think it's 55% linen and 45% rayon. Yes, it looks similar, but if you're going for truly authentic, you want 100% linen. And that's where the fabricstore.com comes in. They have free shipping on Mondays and Wednesdays if you purchase X amount of dollars. And if you're not planning on purchasing that much, call up your friends, go in on an order together so that you can get that free shipping discount. Other than that, anybody have any questions? No questions? Y'all can unmute if you want. I think I'm done teaching, unless anybody has any other questions. Good to go. Oh, you're welcome.
This was great. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I didn't really teach you how to sew anything specific, but it's a one-on-one class. I figured I didn't want to go too much and scare you all away from sewing.
That's perfect. Starting from the ground up. It's great.
Yeah. For sword covers, since you did mention that, you want to go with a you want to go with a medium weight cotton. That's going to hold up long term for you. Lightweight cottons are going to be cheaper, and how you can tell the difference is lightweight cotton you can see through, a medium weight you can't. The price difference will also be a few dollars. Lightweight cottons are going to cost between like $1 and $5. Medium weights are going to be between like $4 and $10. And duck cloth is always going to be $10 unless of course it's on sale. But you want to look
Do
at
you
the
have
regular.
any experience with those ripstop covers that are getting really popular now?
Personally, I do not. I don't even know what fabric they are.
I
I've
saw
seen them
something that
though.
looked like it in Michael's or something. Maybe it was.
Hold on, I
Joann's.
have one. Let me look at it.
Doesn't Gorg use like a rip stop on his covers?
Oh,
On his secret line, he does.
Oh,
Yeah, so this one is a ripstop.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is, to be honest. It's a little bit too small for this sword, ironically.
Is that an optimum foam?
Yes, I actually, what was the company I got this one from? Forge Foam, I think. Yeah, they were
Oh, Forge
offering
Foam.
a $100 for a red testing, and then you could add on another blue sword for an extra $50. So I did it. I've only fought with this like 2 times because it was like right before COVID started. But it's pretty. We're done talking
Yeah.
about something. But I have no idea what this fabric is. Do you know what this fabric is? I'm asking more.
This is that ultralight,
Ripstop. Yeah, we know that part.
it's a nylon of some sort.
Mort thinks it's a nylon, which means highly flammable.
I've used like
And
the
that's the
duck
other-
cloth.
Huh?
I think I've used like I think they call it duck cloth.
Yes, duck cloth or duck canvas. That's what I was actually showing examples of.
Makes heavy.
Ah.
Yeah, heavy covers, great for embroidery. That's what, if you have any masks from me that are embroidered, that's what they're on. That's duck cloth.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So yeah, look at your Albasari mask. That's a duck cloth.
That's
Duck-
I've used that on covers a couple times. They work pretty good.
yeah, duck canvas and duck cloth work really good for shield covers. I personally don't like them for sword covers because it's a little heavier. And if you're trying to go with the 12.2 ounce sword like most of us are, I mean, yes, it can give you the extra weight if you're close, but it can also put you over a bunch.
Also textured like crazy.
Yeah, it's also textured really weird, so it's not so nice for your face, like this side.
Good point.
I mean, you're not supposed to be hitting each other in the face, so. But accidents happen.
Don't put it on your arrows.
Yeah,
Exactly.
don't put that on your arrows. Arrows, you want medium weight cotton.
I was doing this thing for a while where I was not stealing, but they have like extra surgical supplies. And I was taking the like thread from that and just hand sewing a bunch of stuff. And I took the like synthetic, like plastic thread and put it in a shield. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is probably not the nicest thing to get hit with.
Well, I mean, if it's on a shield, you're technically not supposed to get hit in the face with it, so. But for shields, I mean, nowadays, like I just finished an embroidered shield. So embroidered shields are coming into play more, as well as plastic tip shields, which are both not nice on the face either. So, I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not nice. So, I mean, shields don't have to be nice. Arrows are the only thing I think have to be nice. And javelins.
And jabbies, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be mean about a javelin. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add or ask about?
You gonna do a second series?
I think so. Yeah, actually. So I know that there were some people asking about sword covers and stuff like that. So I can definitely teach you guys how to make that. As far as patterning in general, oh, that's what I didn't go over that I was going to. So if you make a pattern, whatever material you decide to make out of it, I highly recommend laminating it. That way it holds over time, especially if you're going to be tracing it like a million times. Like this one has been traced at least 200 times and it's still in perfect condition.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because like I would like to learn about different seams and stuff. I've taught myself flat felled seams for masks and stuff, but online like images and stuff is not quite as ideal for learning all of that. And curved fabrics makes it even harder. Going over around a curve, as in the fitted masks, has been very frustrating to teach myself. I've done it. It's just a pain in the butt.
Yeah, with curves, especially like for example with these, so as you can see there's curves. If you didn't
Mhm.
notice, I'm actually working on a pile of masks right now. The endless mask parade. You'd basically want to do just a nice tight small stitch. So what I was talking about the length, a 1 to 1.5 is the length you want to use for your sewing on those, and then
Mhm.
just go slowly. So go slowly, keep your hands on the project. Unfortunately, you don't really want to watch TV while doing it because that can be a huge distraction.
Right, because I try to avoid the bubbles that often occur, and it's not easy.
Yeah. And it depends on what kind of mask you're doing too. What shape masks are you doing?
Typically, the rounded fitted ones, I think it's probably similar to the one you just held up.
Okay.
Because I have glasses as well, and having the fog is a real nuisance. Yes, I have put my own wire pocket on the inside of my masks for some of them to try to help avoid that, but it only does but so well.
Yep, I totally understand as I have glasses now. When I first made masks, I was looking online and I couldn't find a pattern I liked, and I was like one of the first people to jump in on it. So I was like, well, the N95 doesn't fog up my glasses, so I basically took an N95 and traced it, and then just kept adjusting the pattern until it was something that I was really happy with.
Huh.
Now, and so this is what happens if you don't keep a pattern. As you can see, it gets worn down. But this is actually like a piece of cardboard that I've used. And this hole is actually for embroidery so that I can line it up with everyone.
Ah.
So this is the final that I came up with that has defogging. Well, not defogging, but anti-fogging feature to it.
Yeah.
But yes, I definitely understand the struggle there and the problems that makes it.
Yeah, because even the masks that I have to wear at work, because I have to actually wear medical masks for work, I have a complete struggle because I have a small face, and 9 times out of 10, I will end up wearing a pediatric mask because I can.
Hey, if it's what you got to do to stay safe, nothing wrong with that.
Well,
All right.
this was great. I'm very encouraged and looking forward to starting sewing. I hope everybody else learned exciting things too. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we wrap up?
I think that's it. If you guys have anything you specifically want to learn how to do, let me know. I'm fine with teaching anything simple. Tunics are a little bit more in depth. They take a couple hours to make, so it's not something that I would do over a Zoom meeting. But like a shield cover or things like that, we can definitely see what we can do about teaching you how to do those. So just comment on the event what you'd like to learn next time, and I will get with Jamie and see what we can do about when we can set up that class.
Cool.
Great, sounds awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is
And
great.
We will definitely get that scheduled. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to put on the class for us.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad you guys all came for it.
And thanks for being the guinea pig too.
Yes.
I don't think anybody really knew how this would go. So
Yeah, I didn't either.
you did great. All right, I'll stop the recording and I'll send it. I can send you a